Okay, I think it's correction time. Hi, my name is Tammy. The Dove Bead, talking about Revelation. And I need to correct some things because I reread 2 Thessalonians, and it was chapter 1, right around verse 3 is somewhere in there. But it talked about, could be lower than that. Or, yeah. Anyway, but it was talking about how recompense tribulation on them that trouble you. Not the righteous, but them that trouble the righteous. Now, then he preached to them. He talked to them that were troubled and said, you can be at rest. Rest with us. You who are troubled, rest with us. Now, and while I was thinking about that verse, I think I read it wrong. The righteous don't need to go through tribulation, but they might. They might. But here's the point. But I keep remembering the incident when Jesus was among his disciples still, and they were in the boat. And Jesus was sleeping. He was taking a nap. But then a storm came and tossed the boat. And the disciples were fearful, and they were saying, they're like, what are you going to do? Are you going to do something? I forget what they said. Are you going to do something, or are you just going to sleep? Are you going to do something? Are we also just supposed to drown? And Jesus yelled back at him, why are you so fearful? Why are you frightened? Why are you so fearful? I mean, he yelled back at him. Because he was sleeping. He was at rest, even while in a storm. They were looking at the winds and the waves and growing fearful of what might happen to him. And what might happen to it wouldn't happen because Jesus was in the boat with him. He was in the boat and he was asleep. He was resting. You understand? He was at rest. He was not moved by what was going on outside of that boat. And Apostle Paul is saying that he's in that stance right there. Now he talked about going through tribulation, trouble, and all that. But he also, he talked about that. But he knows that you got to come out. You got to come out of trouble. You can't be troubled by the wind and the waves. You can't let yourself be troubled by the tossing. Because we're going through a season of tossing a wind. We're going through all that. We're going through wars and rumors of wars. We've even seen water turn to blood. Right? We've seen volcanoes erupt, earthquakes. So, people are going through stuff. But Jesus is asleep in the boat. And what Christians need to learn. Okay, so, and he was in the midst of them. There was something going on that was troubling them. And so he's saying, be at rest with us. And he starts talking about the revelation of Jesus Christ. Christ being revealed. Well, the book of Revelation was Christ being revealed. when Christ is revealed, he starts talking about revelation. He starts talking about when Christ is revealed. Right? Yeah. And so, but there's still, in the book of Revelation, there is a multitude that no man can number, of every nation, kindred, tongue, and people, stood before the throne and before the Lamb. And they're going, and it says, and now that's 7:9, Revelation 7:9, and 7:14, these are they which came out of great tribulation. Now, when you read the churches, like with the seven, where he's addressing the seven churches, I mean, he told Thyatira that they were going to go through great tribulation, and it was directed at the Jezebel that they were tolerating, and he's saying you're going to go through great tribulation, cast her on a bed of sickness. But there's a great tribulation coming to her, probably, and to anyone who's caught up in her deception. So, because apparently she was preaching in the church. She was presenting herself as a prophet or a prophetess, but she wasn't really prophesying. She had idols. She was, and honestly, I want to tell you what I think. When they put into law the 501c3, and they started requiring churches to call themselves a non-profit, and they went under that tax exemption status. And the requirement was that they could not speak about any political event, any political candidate, anything political, anything like that, because that was their requirement to get the tax exemption. So what happened is the devil worked this deception, and they fell victim to a bribe. That's what it is. Because when you're taking a bribe to keep quiet, how many know that's a sin? That's an abomination. And the church has been under that, because they all just kind of adopted that, not reading that, not thinking of how it was against God. It was against God. Because you're taking a bribe, an oath, and saying, I'm not going to speak out against political issues. Well, abortion. Certainly you're going to speak out against abortion. Certainly you're going to speak out against those who would propose that and try to pass laws. Certainly you're going to be against those who you need to speak out against the candidates. Unfortunately, the Democrats are on the wrong side. I mean, they're all pushing things that a Christian in their right mind would be against. Absolutely. Because they're the ones pushing abortion abortion's bad enough, but when they're pushing when they're half out, the stuff they're proposing is sick. They're saying it does make a child suffer. They're causing that baby suffering. And it is a life. And they have numbed people down to thinking that it's just tissue. Baloney. It's life. It's breathing. It has a soul. That's right. And so for the church to be in this position for that length of time to a tax exemption, because hey, I was under those churches. I went to those. And I don't know what the business, I don't know the business end of the church I was in. I don't know. I have no clue. But I tell you what, God has been judging the church over that. And there has to be repentance. And I think maybe there's still some, because there's corruption. The judgment begins in the house of God. The scripture says that. So God has to deal with the corruption in the church. Because there's those that are tolerating homosexuality. We don't tolerate that. We don't tolerate someone living with someone they're not married to, or there's pastors. I mean, I've heard this. There's ones that'll marry and get divorced just to marry. I mean, they're it's almost like a lifestyle practice with them, you know, to marry as many as they can. And there's thinking out there that's stupid like that, but there's some out there that think that. And that is wrong too. And, you know, I mean, I knew a pastor that was divorced, but he wasn't living a lifestyle like these other pastors are just being married. He wasn't doing that. But I mean, he had marital hang-ups, and that's what stuff was going on. Anyway, but I went up to him and told him, gave him a word once and said, divorce is over. That spirit, that thing going on in you is done. I actually went up to him and told him that. Gave him a word like that, because it was a curse apparently that was on him that kept happening, because I don't think he was trying to do that. So, and God will protect those that have gone through that's an issue. Now, well, we had to talk about why there's a great multitude of people going through great tribulation. And it says when they come out, they're dressed in white. They've been washed in the blood. These are they which came out of great tribulation, have washed their robes, making them white in the blood of the Lamb. And these can be the people that Jesus was talking to in the church of Thyatira, in maybe the Sardis. There's a condition in the church of Sardis where there's a people that think they're alive, but they're actually dead. And that tells me that those people are really flesh and carnal. They're not in the spirit at all. They're not discerning their spiritual condition. They're totally consumed by the flesh, and they think, right, they're not really in the spirit. And those people are like the Galatians, where when Apostle Paul addressed them, he said, something like, why are you bewitched, or something like, who has bewitched you? Who has bewitched you? Why would he use such a term? Because they were coming to the Lord with faith. They were accessing the power of the Spirit through faith, but something happened that made them think they had to work the works of the flesh, works that would get them healed or get them right. Something happened, and he said, "Who has bewitched you? Did you get this by faith, by the Spirit, or did you get this by the works of flesh?" And he's asking those questions because he saw they were not what they were before, I guess. He said, "You were running well. You were doing well. Who messed this up? Who sent you off course?" So he's addressing that because he realized they were not who they were before. And Sardis sounds a little bit like that. They were running, they were alive, but then something happened and now they're dead. And they still think they're dead. They still think they're alive, but they're not. They're dead. And that can be the 501c3 condition that came in and cut them off from their life of the Spirit. And they think they're still wonderful and they're not. Or like this Galatian issue, they're running in with the Spirit, and all of a sudden something happens where they think they got to work for this. Nobody can work for salvation and for healing and deliverance, because Jesus paid for that too. All of that is by grace. And let me give you an example in the scriptures. Job was a grace case, because you say, well, he worked for all that. I mean, he got all that. I mean, God blessed him, but then it was taken. And I mean all of it, except his wife. But it was all taken, including his children, in a single day. But he didn't curse the Lord. And he said, "Naked I was from my mother's womb, and naked I shall return." Blessed be the name of the Lord. He did not curse God in the midst of all that with his mouth. That he did not curse God. And we've gone through stuff in this country similarly, like 9/11, I think, was a Job moment for people. We're going through things now that I think are Job moments. And so I think people really need to go and go back there and say, "God, blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be the name of the Lord." Just bless the Lord. He did not curse God with his mouth. He did not. Yeah. And even when he got hit with boils, he still blessed God. And so you got to say, now then, bless God in the midst of your stuff. But then God returned and restored all that Job lost. Thank you. Have a blessed day. Goodbye for now.